Two Beetles in a Box by Matthew Shelvey. It all started with two beetles that I put inside a box, in which I also kept a couple of my favourite shiny rocks. I found the beetles crawling up onto our welcome mat. One was long and skinny, the other round and fat. One was coloured crimson red, the other brilliant blue. I thought that they were climbing up to enjoy the view. But they didn't stop to take a look, they didn't miss a stride. Instead they scooted up the steps, trying to scuttle right inside. I'm sure they saw that on my face a great big frown was growing. I said, "Excuse me there, where do you think you're going?" To my surprise, both beetles stopped and stood up as if to walk, and then to my astonishment, I heard the beetles talk. "Good morning there," I heard them say. "What a day to be outside. We're on a famous hiking trail that's in our travel guide." I introduced myself and said my name is Lauren. Smiling, the blue one replied, "This is Clyde and I am Warren." I thought what funny names they had and had a little chuckle. I said that I would call them Mr. Scoots and Mr. Scuttle. They said they'd marched for days to get to my front door and would like to take a little rest as their legs were very sore. I said, "It's not that safe out here for beetles of your size. You must be ever watchful of the birds up in the skies." So I invited them to have a rest, take time out to recover. Being outside with tired feet, they'll end up someone's supper. They said, "How can we thank you? We have not been so far before. All we need is a place to sleep and very little more." "Of course," I said, "you're welcome. I know you're tired from your long jaunt. Come in and I'll attend to anything you need or want." Those beetles then continued in right up to my shoes and socks as I picked them up and put them in my rock collecting box. And then the trouble started with the first of their demands. I think these beetles all along had come here with these plans. "We hope you don't consider it impolite or somewhat rude, but would you mind bringing us some sweet and tasty food? Our favourite treats are lemon tarts and warm donuts and fruit cake, and we do request that you only serve from those you freshly bake." Being a well-mannered child and knowing how to treat a guest, I said, "Of course I will," while they had a little rest. Into the pantry for some flour, a pinch of salt and bowl of yeast. I then spent all my Sunday morning cooking up a feast. The beetles were delighted as they munched and crunched away. With food like this to eat for lunch, they told me they would stay. Not quite sure what that meant, or I really thought this through. I nodded and said, "Of course you can," as they issued demand too. "We would like a picnic table, somewhere that we can eat, and next to that we'd like to have our very own retreat." I said, "It would be my pleasure to provide all of this for you, as I built a place where they could dine, along with beds for two." Once their lodgings were complete, the beetles were impressed. Then they said they'd like a chat about their next request. "We don't mean to be a pest and appreciate what you have done, but of the sights in here to see, there is really only one. These rocks in here are great that we have climbed and explored, but would like something else to do, as we're getting rather bored. To help you with this little problem, and so that nothing's missed, we've put down all the things required on a little list. We would like a curvy swimming pool with a long and slippery slide, some swings, a trampoline, and a seesaw we can ride." I nodded and politely said that I understood. "What you have just asked me for," I said, "of course I would." All that afternoon I spent constructing up the site, as the beetles kindly pointed out things that were not right. Just as sunset came and I finally finished up their park, I thought that I would take a break as it was getting rather dark. But my beetle friends were hungry, wanting more and more to eat. There was very little time to put up my weary feet. For dinner we would like a nice entree, mains and dessert. Also, would you tailor us some pants and trendy shirts? "I'll see what I can do," I said, as I served up dips and bread, then off to find some sewing kit for some needle and some thread. As my beetles finished eating, I was hoping they would doze, but instead they placed more orders for their fancy custom clothes. One asked for a red bow tie, the other coloured shoes, and a range of stylish hats from which we can pick and choose. I took a long deep breath. All of this would take a while. I said that I would make the things to keep them both in style. Outfits are not that easy with no arms and 6 long legs. I ended up using lots of pins and a couple of mother's pegs. With my beetles smartly dressed and again contently fed, midnight then just ticked by as I crawled off into my bed. Before the sun had risen, before the night was done, I was woken by these beetles in their amusement park of fun. They were splashing, they were jumping, they were going up and down, and on the slippery, slippery slide going round and round. I said, please would you mind, could I ask if you could keep just a little quieter while I try and get some sleep? They said, we are so sorry, apologising for the noise. If we can't play in the park right now, do you have some toys? A train, a plane, a submarine, a fire engine and a bike, and here's a catalogue of 7 other things that we would like. I pulled myself from my bed, found some clothes and got dressed. I said, all these things that you would want, I'll certainly do my best. Or that morning I went about searching every drawer. It took me several hours before I found them all. The Beatles were quite pleased as they finished up their brunch. They said, we'll play with these while you prepare our lunch. My goodness gracious me, I thought, I'll move that welcome mat. If only I had found a cuddly dog or fluffy cat. As I served up lunch once more, hoping at last I may unwind, I heard the Beatles ask, excuse me, would you mind? A couple of our friends are coming over here tonight. We have said that your generosity is truly a delight. We also said that you would build a disco floor and music stand. Our friends who really love to dance said they will bring the band. I looked outside the window and there were more than just a few. From the garden to my front door there already was a queue. There were grasshoppers and centipedes, crickets and dragonflies, cicadas and some ladybirds and several butterflies. I shook my head and said, what is a girl to do? There now goes my afternoon and my evening too. Just before the sun went down and the disco floor was done, I opened up the door and in came everyone. There were insects of all sorts dressed in bits of odds and ends. How did my wily beetles have so many different friends? Each one introduced itself or said they were excited. I'm pretty sure that most of them had not actually been invited. Demands for food and sugary drinks then started coming through. I even got their odd requests for bowls of warm fondue. Once the music started, they danced all through the night. This rowdy crowd did not sleep until the rays of first day light. I did not get to sleep at all and let out a great big yawn. With the party finally over, it was time these bugs were gone. When the last of them departed, I slowly closed the door. I sat down on the ground. I was doing nothing more. Up came Clyde and Warren, who said, this party was a success. I looked inside my box and saw a complete and utter mess. They said, we have a new idea we are sure that you will love, and we'd like to have connecting stairs to a level up above. We'd like a movie theatre, putt-putt golf and bowling alley, and somewhere we can lounge around and simply dilly-dally. I said, just wait a minute there. It was time to take a stand. It is now my turn to speak, and I'll not hear one more demand. From this moment forward, and I don't mean to be unkind, but any new requests you have will all now be declined. There is nothing more to find, nothing more to bake, nothing more to build, and nothing more to make. I carefully picked up Warren, and then I picked up Clyde. I held them in my hands and took them both outside. I said, you beetles are too much, and I do request your pardon, but now it's time for both of you to go back into the garden. With those beetles finally gone, at last I could take a break. Letting in those crafty beetles had been one very big mistake. Back inside my house, I emptied out my box and decided all I'll keep in there are my favourite shiny rocks.